In Potsdam in 1888, the German Emperor Frederick III died 99 days into his reign. The formal portrait of him after death, daguerreotype, full military uniform, eyes closed, is one of the most viewed imperial photographs in Europe. And a generation of these exist. The Emperor of Mexico, 1867. Pedro II of Brazil, photographed by Nadar in 1891. Anonymous mothers in anonymous parlors, holding dead children propped against a stand, eyes painted on, hair combed, dressed in their Sunday clothes. The stand is called a hidden mother. The photograph is called a memento mori. The practice lasted about 50 years between 1860 and 1910 in Britain, and the obvious explanations Victorians were death-obsessed, or this was a niche mourning convention. Both miss what the studio photographer was actually doing. The flaw is in the lens. In 1839, Daguerre unveiled his process. A portrait took a long exposure. Some sources say up to 30 seconds for a sitting subject. Almost all the very early daguerreotype portraits of children that survive in the archives survived because the child was dead. The live child could not sit still. The skin would smudge during the exposure. The blink would distort the face. The dead child was a perfect subject. Wet-collodion plates followed in the 1850s and the exposure dropped, but only to a few seconds at best, and the head still had to be held by a metal stand. The companion practice is called hidden mother photography. The mother is in the frame, hidden behind a curtain of fabric, holding the child still. Both practices sit at the same desk. The dead child was simply the easier customer, which forced the question of what the photograph was supposed to be. The photograph was a face. The word on the certificates, the bills of sale, the studio ledgers, is sleeping. The Linkman paper studies this. Audrey Linkman, who built the academic account of British post-mortem portraiture between 1860 and 1910, and the studio records use sleeping as a synonym for the pose. Not posed as dead, posed as if sleeping. The lighting is soft. The cheeks are rouged. The eyes are partly opened by a small wire prop hidden behind the brow. The hands are folded. The body is dressed in its best clothes, sometimes its wedding clothes, sometimes its christening clothes. The photograph was meant to suppress the evidence of death, not record it. The picture was supposed to sit in the family album next to the portraits of the living, in the same frame, indistinguishable. The dead were not separated from the living in the picture. They were rendered as living, a single continuous book of faces. And the children who needed this were not rare. In mid-Victorian Britain, somewhere between a quarter and a third of children died before their 5th birthday. The child the family photographed alive was a survivor. The child whose photograph was the only one ever taken, the daguerreotype plates exist for the dead infant and not the living child, was the more common case. The Linkman paper says the photographs were intended to ease the pain of loss and bring solace and comfort to the bereaved. They were not morbid. They were the only consolation available. The act of standing the dead child up against a hidden mother stand and tucking a flower in the hand was the same gesture as the act of holding the living child upright for a sitting. The photographer did not change. The family did not change. The technology failed. The art form began. The practice was not fringe. Emperor Frederick III of Germany, photographed post-mortem in 1888. The plate survives in the public collections. The widow Victoria, Princess Royal, kept it on her desk. By 1891, the practice had crossed the Atlantic, Nadar shooting Pedro II of Brazil, and by the end of the century the trade in carte de visite memorial portraits was a commercial category in most European cities. The Burns Archive in New York holds hundreds of thousands of period photographs from 1839 to the 1950s, and memorial and post-mortem photography is one of its tagged categories. The most common surviving subject is a child. The Linkman paper, by contrast, studied the same period in Britain and found post-mortem portraits to be a tiny minority of family photograph collections. Both findings are right. The archive preserves what survived. The collection preserves what was kept. The practice ended around 1910. The Kodak Brownie arrived in 1900. By 1910, anyone could shoot a live child. The dead no longer had to stand in. The lazy answer is that the Victorians were death-haunted and we are not. The other lazy answer is that photography changed. Both are partly true, and neither is the thing. The thing is that the photograph was, for 50 years, the only technology that could hold a face across time. It was the only inventory of a person the family could keep. And the dead needed to be inventoried as much as the living. India still has death photographers in Varanasi. 300 bodies a day on average in the burning ghats. The photographers earn $10 a sitting and the family takes the print home. The practice is alive now in different clothes. The thing that endured across 170 years is not that the Victorians were morbid. It is that photographs were always, in part, a way of refusing to lose the face. The dead did not need to be seen. We did. The photograph was always for the living.